começando o PrimoCast, o podcast oficial do Primo Rico. No programa de hoje, vamos bater um papo com um homem que criou o Growth Hacking. E ele revolucionou diversas empresas, né? E por isso a gente está aqui com Sean Ellis. Ele é empreendedor, investidor anjo e conselheiro de startups. Ele desenvolveu o Growth Hacking em empresas que com certeza você conhece, como o Dropbox, Eventbrite, LogMeIn e Lookout. Empresas que hoje valem bilhões de dólares. Ele criou o termo Growth Hacking, ele é o autor desse livro aqui. E hoje todos vocês empreendedores, profissionais de marketing, vocês que trabalham numa empresa, eu tenho certeza que vocês vão aprender muito, porque eu vou aprender. Hoje eu estou na posição de aluno aqui e vou sair da zona de conforto. Esse podcast vai ser em inglês, então eu espero que vocês estejam comigo aqui. A gente vai colocar traduções aqui embaixo, tá bom? Então, boa sorte para nós.
Lucão, ó, mais um podcast em inglês e o Primo não chamou a gente.
Pois é. Uma vergonha, na verdade, né? Porque a gente ficou enrolando e a gente não se sente, na verdade, à vontade de conversar em inglês, sentar com um gringo lá e trocar com ele, né?
Mas
cara?
Como eu resolvo meu problema de falar inglês para participar de podcasts incríveis igual esse?
A gente tá com um parceiro aqui mega incrível, que é o WhatsApp Online.
O WhatsApp Online do nosso amigo Flavião?
Flávio Augusto, que tá lá no podcast O Conselho, projeto super legal também. O pessoal da WhatsApp desenvolveu uma plataforma onde você consegue pagar uma mensalidade bem baixinha, né? E você consegue aprender inglês com cases reais, de forma online. Você pode ouvir de onde você quiser, assistir de onde você quiser, pode baixar as aulas.
E como que faz para um primo que agora vai ter que ficar 30 minutos lendo legenda
Tá.
para ele começar a entender o que o cara tá falando sem precisar ler nada? O que ele precisa fazer?
Ele precisa assinar o WhatsApp Online.
Clicar no link na descrição do QR Code?
Link na descrição, QR Code, assina. Tem um cupom até dia 31 de outubro, vai ter um cupom aqui de R$120, que é mais do que uma primeira mensalidade aí.
Que você lembra que o Thiago queria cupom pra galera pro primeiro mês de graça? Então, a gente conseguiu.
Mas o Flávio, ele quer ganhar dinheiro, então ele falou assim, cara, o cupom é só até dia 31.
Mas é um cupom ainda muito bom.
Tá bom?
Então,
aprenda inglês, porque aí você não perde as suas oportunidades.
Porque, não sei se eu posso dar esse spoiler, mas são os primeiros de muitos podcasts em inglês. E também temos o Equity Mais.
Pô, a gente sempre fala disso.
Opa.
Outro dia até o pessoal tirou foto com a gente aqui, ficou conversando com a gente no
Porque
Equity.
as pessoas não sabem que a grande parcela das pessoas que vêm no Equity Mais aqui através do PrimoCast, eles podem tirar foto com a gente sempre vai pro escritório, conversa com o pessoal.
Sim. O Coffee, né? O Coffee é dentro do escritório aqui.
O Coffee, a galera, a gente pode começar a colocar a galera também para tirar foto aqui no cenário do PrimoCast.
Com certeza.
Então, você que quer participar do Equity Mais, que é com o Thiago, o Busch e vários empreendedores que a gente convida ao decorrer do evento, e ainda mais conhecer todo o nosso escritório e o estúdio do PrimoCast, basta clicar nesse link na descrição ou no QR Code, né?
É isso aí, mas não é para todo mundo, são 50 vagas e tem alguns pré-requisitos ali, né? Para vir uma galera legal também, para ser um momento de networking forte.
Tem que agregar valor, tem que fazer sentido.
Cara, eu não gosto de papinho, não.
É um negócio super acessível ali, todo mundo consegue tirar foto com o Thiago, conversar com o Thiago, então clica aqui no link e se fizer sentido para você, se inscreva.
Beleza? Aproveita o programa.
Sean Ellis, welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us in PrimoCast and gifting us with an hour of your very precious time, man.
Oh, thank you, Thiago. It's so great to be with you here.
Thank you so much. And did you get your slice of cheese?
I did.
You did?
And my quiche as well.
Okay, your quiche, you have the coffee,
I'm
the
all
water.
set. Yeah.
The best finest book in Brazil.
Got it right here.
Thank you so much. Sean, as I told you before, sorry for my broken English, but I will try to communicate here. And I have some questions to make, okay? First of all, you are the creator of the growth hacking term,
Yep.
right? Can you tell me a little bit about how it came up, or how you put everything together to develop this term? What was it like the first time you mentioned it?
Yeah.
When was it? Were you in an event, in an online course or something?
Sure.
What was that?
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. So we were talking a little bit before we got started, and I spent a lot of time living in Eastern Europe and started 2 companies in Budapest, Hungary. Okay. And so I wasn't in Silicon Valley where I could learn from my peers. I really had to learn from kind of myself. And
So this didn't come from Silicon Valley?
No, I didn't
Yes.
move to Silicon Valley until like 1 or 2 years before I came up with the term. But when I was in Budapest, Hungary, we launched two companies. The first was a game company called Uproar, and then the second was a company called Log Me In. And I hadn't really studied even marketing in school. And so the one thing that I did was I invested in both of those companies even before I started working for them. And so it really mattered to me to make sure that they were successful.
You were like an angel investor or something?
Angel investor, exactly. And so it was not just my job, but it was also my full savings at that point. So it was really important for me to figure out how to grow these businesses and grow them well. And so I was not just trying to make myself look good to the boss. I really wanted to do a good job. And so as I learned and kind of invented my own process to grow these businesses, the first company went on to become a top 10 website in the world and the #1 game site. And we were competing against Microsoft and Yahoo and lots of Silicon Valley
What is the
companies.
company?
That was Uproar.com.
Uproar.com.
Yeah. And then the second company, Log Me In, same thing. We were competing against a very successful competitor called Go to My PC, and had to really be creative in how we grew those businesses. And so it wasn't until then that I moved to Silicon Valley.
But first of all, you talked about how you made the Uproar company went to the top of the list, but how did you do that?
Yeah. So I'll go back and say how I did that. But it wasn't until I moved to Silicon Valley that I discovered I was doing it very differently than everyone in Silicon Valley, or most people in Silicon Valley. So what did I do differently? The first thing at Uproar, and this was like many years ago now, this was 1996, 1997, I made sure that I said, okay, our big competitive advantage is that we have very talented engineers that are much cheaper than all these American companies. So I wanted to bring those engineers into my marketing as much as possible. So first thing I did was I said, let's invest in the best tracking that we possibly can. So we built analytics at that time that was way beyond what any other company had. So that allowed me to optimize the spending very well. And then I said, everyone else buys advertisements and then brings them to their website. Why don't I take my games and start the gameplay experience on other websites? And so instead of...
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so an advertisement would just be, saying, hey, come play these fun games. If I could actually have the fun game start on someone else's website and then lead them into my website. And so that was, we were able to convince websites to embed a small game about the size of a YouTube video. So a similar strategy that YouTube used many years later. So with a little piece of JavaScript, they could embed our game onto their website, start the gameplay experience, and then we actually would pay them money when that person came to our website. But our acquisition cost was so tiny compared to every other company. So they would basically play a trivia game, and then when they came to our website, they would see a message that said, "Congratulations, you were successful in the trivia game. Sign up. You might win some money." So then they would fill out the form, and then they would see a screen that said, "Join another game that has 300 people playing right now, and next cash prize is in 10 minutes. Join now." And so they would, we weren't trying to convince them. We already gave them a great experience, and it was now have an even better experience this way. And so that approach really allowed us to become the biggest game site in the world. And we launched that in 1997. And so
it was back then,
way before anybody else was doing something like that.
So instead of getting acquisition to the website and then giving a call to action to download the game or something, you added a way of playing it. So starting to play this content before doing the call to action to download the app.
We said, how do we bring the fun to other websites.
To the process.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then that spread virally between other websites. So a website would see a little button that says, "Add this game to your website," and so then it would
Okay.
spread from website to website.
But okay, I understood this worked, but why do you think adding this step or changing this step worked from a consumer perspective? Like, why do you think the conversion rose so much by doing that?
So I think it's because the most important thing in growth, historically, people would say it was build your brand. And so get your name out there, get your logo out there. And I've always thought that the most important thing for growth is actually experiences. You know, the average person sees 3,000 advertisements in one day.
The average.
Yeah. How many experiences do they have? They have maybe
Almost
one
zero.
new experience, like almost no new experiences. So if you can deliver the experience, that's actually much better for building a brand, is an experience with a product. That's much more lasting. You remember that.
Yes.
You don't remember the advertisements you see. There's just too many of them. And so I think that was our trick, was like bringing that fun experience to, we got it on 40,000 websites, and including big ones like CNN and CBS Sportsline. And so they would start that gameplay experience and already have something unique. They said, oh, that was fun. And then a very good conversion funnel that brought them into our website, and then focusing on retention. Most people back then didn't focus on retention, but we said, once we get them playing the games on our website, let's build community with the other players. How do we get them talking to each other, get them in teams and really getting to know each other? And so we also then, when we acquired people, we had the longest time per user on our website of any website in the top 100. And so we had very efficient customer acquisition with very engaging content, and that was
But
the
like,
trick.
is there some science to it or some methodology that a entrepreneur or a company can use to implement it to my business model of acquisition or something, like watching what you did?
There is, and that's really what developed later, and that was kind of
So
the
you
growth
were
hacking.
developing and think about it at that
Yeah,
time.
at that time it was more like,
Testing.
we don't have very much money compared to everybody else. We are probably going
And
to
this
die
is
as a
this
business.
is where we develop like new things when we
Yeah.
don't have money. Like
when you're desperate, when
Yeah,
you
when
think
desperate.
you're going to die. So I was
True,
like,
yeah.
I put all my money into this company,
Yeah.
and we are going to die. I need to be creative to figure something out. And so, you know, we ultimately did that, built this valuable company. It got acquired, and then the same team launched Log Me In. Not very long, like within 2 years, we launched Log Me In. And back in those days, you identify an opportunity, then you lock yourself away for a long time and build the product, and then come back out. So that's what we did. By the time we came out with the product, someone else had already taken the opportunity.
Yes.
And they had become very popular. They were spending millions of dollars every month building awareness on television, on radio. They got acquired by Citrix for hundreds of millions of dollars. And now we have this product that looks just like theirs. The opportunity is
Yes.
basically gone. And so same thing. How can we compete against that? So we basically were one of the very first software products in the world to have a freemium model. So I said, okay, this successful business they built, let's give away what they're charging $20 every month for. Let's give that away for free. And if we can keep people on the product, then we can have some premium features that we can sell them to on. And so that was our big differentiation. But there's lots of little tests along the way, but it was like, you can't win playing the game the same way as someone who's stronger than you, sort of the David and Goliath. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's something interesting about the freemium thing, because when I started producing content on YouTube, I tried to produce videos almost on a daily basis for around 4 months, and nobody was watching me.
Yeah.
So it was the same person as today, and I was trying something that didn't work, and then I changed the context.
Yeah.
I stopped talking about a kind of investment here in Brazil, and I started talking about other investment, and then suddenly, poof, the numbers started increasing. So it's a lot about testing, A, B,
Exactly.
A, B, A, B. So, and we have a platform here in Brazil, subscription-based, and we tried to increase the conversion rates, and we went for a freemium model, and the conversion rates dropped a lot. So we changed it back. So when we are talking about growth, maybe it's very important to do A, B, C a lot of times.
So we definitely learned that with Log Me In. When we first launched the product, same thing. We had the free version, but we couldn't really get people to sign up for it cost effectively. You know, to get the word out, it cost us money. And it was actually kind of complicated to use the product. So you had to install it. It's remote control software for your computer. So you couldn't really use it until you went to a different computer. So there was a lot of challenges there. And so when I was head of marketing trying to grow this, but I could spend about $10,000 a month. And if I spent more than that, I would lose money. And so, but we raised $10 million for marketing. And so my CEO is telling me, we got to spend more. And I'm constrained by the ability to spend. And so when I dug into the data, I discovered that only 5% of the people who signed up actually used the product. So 95% of the people, we pay all this money to get them to sign up. They never use the product, so they're not going to pay us any money. They're not going to upgrade to premium. And so that was where the testing came in. I was like, how can we change the way to get started with this product? And so the example I gave before was mostly about customer acquisition. This was more about how do we activate new customers? How do we actually get them to a great experience in the product? And so my challenge was I was the marketing guy. And if I said to the product team, hey, 95% of the people who sign up for this product don't use it, you need to make it easier to use, they'll tell me, hey, Mr. Marketing guy, you're bringing the wrong people into this product. You need to do your job better. Don't tell us how to do our job. So I brought the data to the CEO and I said, like, you want us to spend a lot more money cost effectively? It will be impossible until we fix this. And I didn't say it's their fault or it's our fault. They just said, we need to fix this. And what I was hoping was the CEO would give me one person from the product team to spend some time to try to get it better. And to his credit, he actually said, you know what? We are stopping all product development. We will not develop any new features. And I also want you to stop trying to find new marketing channels. Marketing team and product team, you will work together on this problem until we solve it. And so for 3 months, we studied everything about how the customer got started. We did lots of A/B testing on everything. We studied software products that were growing really fast and said, how are they doing their onboarding? How do you get started with those products? And in 3 months, we improved our sign up to usage to 50%.
Wow.
So
just by improving the product.
Just by the product didn't really change. How you got started with the product changed.
The onboarding or something.
The onboarding, yeah. And so that focus now, so 50% still sounds bad. Half the people never use the product, but compared to 5%, that's 1,000% improvement. And so now I went back and tried the same marketing that I previously tried. And instead of 10,000 per month, I could spend 1 million per month with a 3-month payback on those dollars invested. So in 3 months, all that money was back. Everything after that was profit. And 80% of our new users actually didn't even come through that marketing spend. They came from happy customers telling other people. Yeah. So when they had a great experience, they said, this thing's incredible. It's free. It lets you control your computer from it. You've got to try this. And so the whole business took off from there, and that was the start of putting us on the track to the billions of dollars of value that it ultimately sold for.
But by this time, which year was that?
That would have been 2005.
2005. And did you have the growth term
No,
created?
I coined the growth term in 2010.
And how was that?
So
When was the big day? Like,
yeah, so I spent 4 more years working and growing that business, and so then when we listed on NASDAQ, or when we filed to list on NASDAQ, and I started to think, I like the earlier stuff better. What will I do next? I looked at the 2 companies and I said, you know what? Did I just get lucky here? Are there some things that mattered? And I said, gosh, it turns out that the first 6 months of go-to-market is the most important. And in 10 years, I only have 1 year of experience doing the most important stuff. And so I want to only focus on the first 6 months. And so that's when I went to Dropbox 6 months later after I left LogMeIn and Dropbox.
When you went to Dropbox, like you were a counselor or something?
I was
investor?
No, I was the short-term head of marketing. So so for 6 months, I was the first non-engineer there. There was only 8 people on the team, and basically the same idea. If I can make this product really easy to get started with, get the business model right. They didn't have the business model in place yet. Just build the whole growth engine of this business. Okay. This will be the valuable time in this business. And so
you were the mastermind behind the success of Dropbox.
Because
I was using Dropbox back then.
I would say
it was you who got me.
I would say that my most important thing I did was pick Dropbox because it was a really good product. The team built a really good product, and so I can't add very much value if the product isn't great, if the market opportunity isn't great. But because the product was great and the market opportunity was great, then I could build the engine to get lots of customers on there. And so I started building that engine, and a lot of A/B testing, a lot of building the analytics and really studying the customers. So my biggest thing when I went to Dropbox was, this looks so good, I don't want to break it. That was my biggest fear. And so I before I ran even one experiment, I ran surveys every single day. So there was 100,000 people on the private beta. So I joined the week that it became publicly available, but 100,000 active people. I took that list, I broke it into 100 lists of 1,000 people. Okay. And every day I ran another survey to understand them better.
So you divided like 100 groups.
Yeah.
And you started doing surveys to different groups and test something different every day.
Just survey, just to understand. I didn't want to change anything till I really understood what was working and what wasn't working.
But you divided into 100 different groups to try different things into the groups or something?
Just for surveys. So if I asked them a question, and I got an answer, immediately I would have 5 more questions. And so it was important not to send the survey to all the people.
To everybody, okay.
Every answer I got led to more questions. So
it was like different questions to
different questions, groups. And every time I got answers back, it's like, wow, if that's the case, then I wonder about this. And so and then at the same time I built or defined what the tracking should be so that we could really understand how users were moving through the site, where we lost people. And when I took all of those insights, then I came up with what are the first 10 tests we're going to run.
And what are the most important questions to make to your clients to really understand how you could improve all the metrics when you're trying to study?
Yeah, so there's 2 things I'm trying to understand. One, I'm trying to understand success.
What do you mean by success?
I'm trying to understand the customers who love this.
Okay.
Why do they love it? How did they get started with it? What were they using before? And then I'm also trying to understand failure. When we lose people, why do we lose them? And so if I can understand success first, then that tells me, okay, this is the prototype. I want to create this 1 million more times. And so that's where it becomes really important to understand
Look back, man. Look back. How can we talk with a dinosaur walking
That's why
behind
I'm
us?
glad I'm on this side.
That's crazy. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so you have this success
Yeah.
on one hand.
So the way I understand that, the survey question I asked for that is I asked them, how would you feel if you could no longer use this product?
Okay.
And then I
That's
give
a
them a
hard
choice. I say, very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or not disappointed. And so I'm studying all the people who say I would be very disappointed if I could no longer use this product. And they're the ones that I'm trying to recreate that. And so if I can understand that, that's the success. And then who are all the people that look like them that never reach that state? And why are we losing them along the way? And so that's the information that I used. And you know, the data as well, like where are we losing lots of people? I used that information to come up with 10 experiment ideas to drive improvement. And the reason I didn't just do one and then another one, then another one, is if I do 3 and they all fail, the team will say, why are we wasting our time on this bullshit? So I really wanted to have 10. If I get the team to commit to 10, then I'm certain there will be some successes in these 10 experiments. And so that was what we did. I convinced the CEO that, you know, it took me maybe a month to come up with these 10, but I convinced the CEO, let's run these 10 experiments. And then the CEO and I could explain to the engineers why these experiments are so important. Okay. And then based on those successes, the engineers are all math people. And they said, of course we need to do this. Tess, you're going to figure out better ways. And so then almost every experiment idea after those first 10 came from the rest of the team. And it just built this early culture that, so Dropbox was actually the fastest SaaS company to reach $1 billion in revenue. And we did it like with very efficient cash flow positive results all the way through. And I think it was by really getting this whole team understanding the importance of testing and learning, and truly understanding customers. And by doing that, we ultimately were able to build a really valuable company.
Very good, congratulations. But you weren't in 2010 yet, right?
This was still 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
We're reaching there.
Yeah. So then I did a few more. So I did Eventbrite. Actually, I did half my time with Dropbox and half my time with Eventbrite.
Okay.
And so Eventbrite also became a $1 billion company. And then...
Well, you should help us here in our company, because every company you have reached a $1 billion valuation.
I wish I could say it happened forever, but I think there was some luck along the way too. And then after the 6 months with those 2 companies, I did 2 more companies, one called SocialCast and one called Lookout. And so SocialCast only got acquired for a few $100 million, unfortunately. But I'll still be happy with that. Yeah. So VMware acquired them, but Lookout also reached the $1 billion valuation. And Lookout's an interesting one because when I ran that survey that said, we're almost to 2010.
Almost.
When I ran that survey that said, how would you feel if you could no longer use this product? At Lookout, only 7% of the people said they'd be very disappointed.
Really?
Yeah, and I already committed to...
What did this company make?
They're security software for mobile devices. So they basically did firewall, antivirus, back up your data, find your lost phone, a lot of the pieces that are still in phones now, like baked into them. But at that time, it was still pretty novel, new ideas. And so I ran this question, and 7% of the people said they'd be very disappointed. So 93% wouldn't really care if the product went away. And I thought, oh man, I'm committed to work with these guys for 6 months. I should have asked this question before I joined them. But I was able to, again, study the 7%. And in 2 weeks, we made enough changes so that within 2 weeks, the next group of people who came through and tried the product were at 40% saying they'd be very disappointed. And then in 6 months, it was at 60%.
But how did you make it? Like, you made the questions. You discovered that 7% of those people who actually were clients were not so happy about that. Actually, the
It's the opposite.
It's
so
the opposite.
7% basically said this is a must-have product.
Okay, so 93% didn't care at all.
Didn't care, yeah.
But and when you discovered that, what was the first act, the first thing you made?
So the fastest thing I did was I asked those people, the people who said they'd be very disappointed with, I said, what is the main benefit you get from this product? Okay. And as I mentioned, the product did a lot of things, but these 7% were focused on the antivirus. They said, this product protects my phone from viruses, so I'm not worried about viruses anymore. Okay. And so that told me that, okay, the antivirus is what we need to focus on. People know this on their computers. They want to protect from viruses, so it's easy for them to say, I need to protect my phone from viruses as well. And so then it was very easy to just change the messaging to say, protect your phone from viruses. Like, you don't have to worry about viruses anymore on your phone. So now we created the right expectation for new users when they came in. And then we also changed the onboarding. So instead of coming in and you could back up your data, you could set up your firewall, you could do all these things. The very first thing we had them do was set up the antivirus.
Okay, so the two main things you made were changing expectations, or aligning expectations, and improving the onboard.
Yeah. So make a promise about what the product is truly great at doing in the eyes of the customer, and then very quickly deliver the benefit of that promise. And so when we did those two things, we asked the next group of people who went through this flow, and 40% of them said, I would be very disappointed without this product, and then continued to iterate on that. So the first, getting from 7% to 40% only took 2 weeks. From 40%, 2 weeks. From 40% to 60% took another 5 months. But wow, it's still, and then that company also became worth $1 billion, and it took maybe 3 or 4 years for that to reach the $1 billion valuation. And so it was around that time that I was now in Silicon Valley for maybe a year and a half already. And then I start to talk to other marketers, and nobody was approaching growth this way. People were, marketing was almost a bad word in Silicon Valley. Like the technologists were the ones who founded all the companies and led the companies. Marketing was this too bad we have to have these people. And even the product team was like, can't wait till we make the product so good we don't need marketing anymore. And so, but there was a few that I looked around that were actually doing it similar to how I was doing it. So I saw that Facebook had a lot of data and experimentation when I talked to people who were on the Facebook team. LinkedIn had a lot of data and experimentation. So it turned out that these businesses that kind of needed a lot of people before they could start earning money had to be really creative about how they grew. And so that became baked into their culture early. And so when I saw that, I saw what I was doing, I said, we need to stop calling this marketing. We need to put a different name on this.
This was the time then.
This was the time. And I invited a couple of friends to have some drinks with me. And I was like, guys, we need to put a name on this. And I remember one of the guys saying, you don't just come up with a name. It doesn't work like that. And I'm like, I think this needs a name. And so I left the meeting and said, okay, we're going to call it growth hacking. Then I went.
You said it.
Yeah. And then I said, let's I'm going to write a blog post saying, you need to hire a growth hacker for your startup. And it got some interest. And then Andrew Chen, the investor, Silicon Valley investor with Andreessen Horowitz now, but a more popular blogger than me at the time, not too long after wrote a blog post, growth hacker is the new VP of marketing. And so he amplified it a lot. And then within just a few months, there was more than 1,000 job listings for growth hackers. All the startups wanted to hire growth hackers, and that's really what started the whole process.
So what were you guys drinking to come up with that name? Beer?
No,
wine?
We weren't even drinking alcohol. It was just mint julep.
Juice? Juice?
Mint juleps.
Mint juleps? What is
Yeah.
that?
I don't even know.
Mint julep.
It's like a.
Okay.
I think they don't have alcohol in them, but I wouldn't have even remember what we were drinking. But one of the other guys said we were
Wow.
drinking mint juleps that day.
So you understood that there was something going on very different from marketing, and you
Yeah.
called it growth hacking. So let me ask you now this: what is exactly growth hacking?
So it's really just taking the same sort of scientific method that we've been using, for hundreds of years. Humanity's been using to drive innovation. Like you're kind of studying the situation, coming up with ideas on how you could improve the situation, and then testing those ideas. But you're approaching it to the challenge of how do I get customers on this product, and then. I think what's unique is that even marketing was still being very A/B tested at that point. So it was the recognition that just being good on the customer acquisition side is not enough. You need to do it much deeper into the experience to ultimately get users to really love the product. And so kind of going across what traditionally marketing would be focused on to being deeper in product.
So it's like a data-driven journey from acquisition to consumer happiness. It's something like that.
Yeah, it's this integrated
Okay.
across the full customer journey. How do you ultimately create an engine that creates happy, engaged, valuable customers?
So, but when we try to do growth hacking in the best way possible, what kind of metrics an entrepreneur or a marketing team should focus, aim, or have a must or something like that during our journey? Like on my dashboard, what kind of metrics do I need to?
It's going to depend on the business, but if we go back to like when I really started to figure some of this out, with Log Me In, my investors were actually very excited that I was driving thousands of signups every day. And so it wasn't until I studied the data that I said, none of these signups are using the product. So signups was not a valuable number, but they thought it was. And if I wasn't an investor in the company myself, I might have said, thanks guys, I appreciate you being so happy with me. Let's keep driving signups. But I really wanted to drive people to come in and use the product. So maybe I'll start back at the beginning there a little bit. So you asked about metrics and originally having investors celebrating the sign up metric, it would have been easy for me to stop there. But partly what I was driven by was I wanted to be able to spend more money to drive more signups. And so I was very constrained by return on investment. And not all startups are. A lot of startups are just like, would just spend and spend and spend and not worry about the return on investment. But I studied a lot of economics in university, and
thanks God.
Yeah, I did not want to spend money without a return on that investment. And so having that constraint told me, something is wrong here. And so it was not until I delivered users to that experience. So it was really users who were actively using the product became the key metric for me. And so at the time, I'd never heard of the concept of a North Star metric, but that's kind of the idea here, is like figuring out a metric that equates to when customers are actually getting value from your product and not just somewhere along the funnel. So if you start with that value metric, then every other metric is kind of a something along the path to that metric. And so you need to start with that North Star metric.
So I mean, before thinking about what kind of metrics we will use, we need to figure out what is the North Star metric of my business.
Yeah, exactly.
And then develop all that scheme to reach that number.
Yeah, and that North Star metric is really a function of what is the benefit that customers get from my product, and how can I build a metric around that benefit. And if I focus on that, and I'm growing the amount of the benefit that's delivered, growth is sustainable long term. But if I'm focused on something like signups, then I grow it, and then it goes down. I grow it, it goes down, and I don't necessarily understand why. But if I'm delivering benefit and I'm optimizing how much my existing customers come back and get that benefit even more, now that becomes the foundation of of really sustainable revenue growth. And so if they're getting lots of value, they're going to keep paying me money. And again, now you're beyond what just a marketer does. Kind of the whole company plays a role in delivering that valuable experience.
So what you're saying is the North Star metric can't be a North Star metric from only a business perspective. Like if the North Star metric is getting more subscribers, you may get more subscribers, but maybe you won't have a long-term business.
Right.
So the North Star metric must be aligned with a consumer perspective. Like if he likes your product, you create a growing machine because he'll use your product on long term.
Yeah, so subscription software products are a good example there, where if they're managing to a annual recurring revenue or a monthly recurring revenue, then it feels like they're looking at the right thing. But let's say if everybody's on an annual subscription and it looks like everything's great, but after 1 month, most customers stop using the product. In 12 months, you're going to discover that your revenue goes way down, but it's going to be a surprise for you, where if instead of focusing on just the recurring revenue piece, you're focusing on the recurring usage and recurring value being delivered, that revenue number is going to be a lot more sustainable and ultimately be something that you can grow over time.
Okay. Can you give me like an example of a good North Star metric for a subscription business?
So for a subscription business, like for Dropbox, it might be files that are being stored in Dropbox, or the number of daily users of Dropbox, but something that ultimately represents that more usage is happening. Okay. And then on even a non-subscription business like Uber, it's the number of rides that are being delivered in the system. So without a North Star metric, they might just say, how many people have the app? Or what is our revenue? But if you look at the rides, every time someone takes a ride in Uber, value happens for both a driver and for a rider.
Okay.
And so they manage everything they're doing, they're managing against every week, how many rides did we deliver? If we delivered more rides next week and the week after that, then we can have sustainable growth in the business.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for this insight. It's helpful for me also, right? And now let's talk about the team. The team. I mean, the people working with marketing on a company. In your opinion, what kind of professionals do I hire to like compose a high performance team on a data-driven perspective? Focusing on growth marketing, hacking growth, and this kind of stuff. Yeah,
so it's interesting when you go from, let's just take the marketing leader as kind of an example. Marketing is a set of things you do. And so as long as you're doing all the stuff you're supposed to do, the marketing leader can feel like they're successful. As soon as you say, my head of growth, growth is an output. And it doesn't matter what you did, if growth is not happening, you are failing. And so that puts a lot of pressure on that person. Suddenly they're responsible for a result. And so that's going to attract a different type of person. It's not a to-do list. It's like I'm taking ownership of the most important success metric in this business. And so most people do not want to take on that responsibility and risk. Yes. So now you start looking at who can perform well in that role. That's where an entrepreneur actually can perform pretty well. Someone who has the guts to start their own business isn't scared of, I will take on the role of being responsible for growth and organizing the team and activities that will try to drive that output.
Okay. And what kind of skills do you think someone has to have to be a good part of this team? So besides being an entrepreneur and have grit and this stuff.
So in the early days, you need someone who's very multi-skilled, So you're going to need someone who's pretty good at analytics, someone who's creative. So that's almost opposites right there. Like the analytical and the creative. And so that makes the role harder to hire. But if you have someone who has a little bit of engineering, they can actually prototype and test some things themselves, if they got a little design skills. As the team grows, you can start to have those skills in different people, and then it's about bringing together those skills on the team. But it's like a startup in general. In the beginning, you need more dynamic people that can do lots of things, and as a company grows, specialists are okay as long as those specialists are good at working together.
Okay, and in your book you talk about the growth pyramid, and you say it's divided into 5 different levels or pillars. How exactly does it work? What is it exactly, the pyramid thing in the 5 levels?
Yeah, so it comes back to that question of how would you feel if you could no longer use this product?
Okay.
That question, if you don't have people who would be very disappointed without the product, if no one considers the product a must-have, growth hacking is not going to work. Okay. And so the starting point is get enough people to consider the product a must-have, and so that's at the foundation of the pyramid, and then you build from there. So kind of a simpler pyramid that I started with is really on the foundational level, it's product market fit. So that product market fit essentially means it's a must-have for a reasonably sized market, and then the next level of the pyramid was, okay, now I need to figure out why it's a must-have. I need to get that onboarding fixed. I need to put the analytics in place. I need to have a business model. So I call that the transition to growth stage, where if you just have product market fit and now you just go out and try to grow, but you don't actually have an efficient way of getting people to experience the product the right way, and you haven't made the investment in the analytics, you're not going to be very good. So it's getting to product market fit can take a long time. That next step of transitioning to growth, you want to do as fast as you can. You're just trying to get those pieces in place. And then long term, you're trying to scale the business. So what I did in the 5-step pyramid is essentially broke that transition to growth stage into smaller pieces.
Okay. And I think in my life, I made a lot more mistakes than I got it right in my life. But I think only one good point can make you succeed. You don't need to succeed every time, but one good goal is what you need. But when we're talking about mistakes, what kind of mistakes we can avoid, and what are the main mistakes companies usually make when they're trying to make a good growth machine?
Yeah, so the biggest one that actually studies have shown, there's a study called the Startup Genome Project that studied a lot of startup failure, showed that the number one mistake is actually trying to grow before you have product market fit. So if you don't have a product that actually can retain users, so there's 2 ways you can measure product market fit. One is with that question that I said, where you have enough people who say it's a must-have, they'd be very disappointed without it. But the other is actually just studying the usage. If you have 100 people try the product and within 3 months, all 100 people stop using the product, it's a really bad sign. And so you can actually grow for a little while if you're churning people out, but eventually you're losing people faster than you're bringing them in, and so you're going to waste a lot of energy. So you need to be able to retain at least some people. So it's different. Like some products, like Instagram, about 50% of the people who start using it actually use it long term, but a product like Calm, only 5% of the people who start using the product use it long term, but at least 5% use it long term. So the key is you can't go to the point where it goes to 0. If for every 100 people who try it, after enough time, 0 are still using it, that's a really bad sign. And that's for most products. There's obviously some like a dating site where if you help them find their husband or wife, then they're going to stop using the product. So you have to look at that differently. But for most products, if you want long-term retention on the product, then you have to study that. And so that's the number one thing that causes companies to fail. But I see companies all the time that then, so maybe they have that, and then they try to grow and they don't make the investment in analytics that actually helps them efficiently allocate, time and resources to trying to grow. And so maybe their product market fit is so good that they can be really inefficient on how they spend money and still grow and feel good. But if they knew, there was an old saying, John Wanamaker, that was probably from like 50 or 100 years ago, that said, I know half of my money is wasted, I just don't know which half on advertising. Like in a digital world, we know which half, and so we stop spending that half. But it's amazing the number of companies that actually don't invest in the analytics to have those insights when that was available to them. And so I think making sure that you have the good insights there, making sure that you truly understand that product market fit. We've talked about, like, when I understand why it's a must-have, I can very quickly move from 7% to 40% of users using it the right way so that they continue to use it long-term. But a lot of people are either, we talked about there's the creative and the analytical as kind of opposites. There's also I believe in numbers data, I believe in qualitative data, and usually it's like kind of two different camps. But the real power is when you bring the two of them together, and I see what people are doing and I know why they're doing it or not doing it. And so the better you understand the situation, the easier it is to drive improvement. And so, but I would say the two biggest mistakes would be trying to grow without product market fit, and then trying to grow without truly understanding what's going on.
Okay, perfect. It's a very good insight. I see a lot of friends trying to improve their business in terms of sales before really getting their clients to see value in their products, really. And before we are almost ending it because I need to go to the stage.
Okay.
But I heard you really like soccer and you're in Brazil.
Yes.
And we're in the country of soccer.
Right.
You play soccer and you managed a team of soccer players. What was that? You used growth techniques to make it the champion?
Right.
Tell me this story.
So I'm late to soccer. That's surprising to a lot of people like that. So I'm over 50 years old now, but I've only really been playing soccer for 10 years. And what got me into it was my wife signed me up to be the coach of my children's soccer team while I'm the founder CEO of a company. So I didn't have time. I was not real happy with that, but it turned out that I loved it. And so what I ended up doing, sometimes when you're not like from the sport, or you take a unique approach. And so for me, I used very much of like a growth hacking approach where I took all of the kids and I said, okay, do you usually play offense, defense, midfield? Where do you play? And then I decided to just scramble it up. Kind of every week, I would just mix them into different positions.
Okay.
And then, but instead of studying goals scored, which is kind of, there's not enough of them to get data, I studied shots taken. And so shots taken on our team and then shots we took on the other team. And basically kept scrambling lineups, which player is good next to another player, and basically found the best formula for each team. So for the first team I coached, we didn't win a game for the first 4 games. And then eventually we were the champion of 3 regions. So when we won, we started to win a lot.
Wow.
And then the last team I coached was, we ended up outscoring opponents 52-4 or something like that.
50?
Yeah.
What?
And so, but all the other coaches are just yelling at the children. And my focus was, I want these children to love to play soccer, and I want them to have confidence and enjoy it. And I'm going to use analytics. So, but I was obsessive. Like my children or my wife would come out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm studying data and moving players around. And so I got a little crazy with it, but as long as the children enjoyed it and I wasn't crazy the way other coaches were crazy on yelling to make them hate the sport. So
we see growth hacking works not only in the business, but in a soccer team,
exactly.
maybe in our lives or anything
and so
else.
that's a big part of what I'm with startups. And now I'm it in very different situations. So in the soccer example, now I'm in a company several years, has hundreds of employees, a company called Andela. Great mission, so I'm excited about being able to help them. It's, they believe that equally distributed around the world, but the opportunity is only focused in little areas. So everyone on the team loves this mission of trying to connect talent to opportunities, but they didn't really have a great formula for doing that. I mean, I say they didn't, but it's a $1 company started out of Africa. So it's a good formula, but being able to go into a company like that and help them transition from a sales-led model to a product-led model, driving integration across teams and just being more test-driven. There's a lot of room for improvement, but it's very fulfilling to be able to see the team quickly perform. But I had to start with that really and then getting the teams to more effectively work together. So the more that I can go into different types and their B2B, where I started in business to consumer. So the more that I can go into different companies at different stages with unique situations and see, can I make it work in those situations and fulfilling for me. And so, cool. That's my goal, is to try to figure out different ways to apply it and really to drive impact in areas where
so cool. Sean, congratulations on all the companies you helped reach in more than evaluation. Congratulations on your book, Hacking Growth. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have already read it. You'll get it, okay, and read it.
Yep.
And I'm one of the few that have. Thank you much for that. Congratulations on sharing your knowledge. I'm pretty sure this is a great legacy for a lot of companies, and consequently, a lot of happy clients on the other hand. And do you produce content on any social network that maybe follow and learn more?
So I do a lot on LinkedIn these days.
Okay.
And then
Sean Ellis?
Yep. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, Andela would be my latest company that I'm working with. So you'll find me that way. And then, but I have a podcast where I'm interviewing the kind of growth leaders from the fastest growing companies. So for me, it's all about how do I learn more and see how other people are applying things. And I still feel like I'm very early in the journey of figuring these things out. And so it's a fun process for sure.
I'll leave all the links in the description. Perfect. Okay, below this video. Thank you so much for today. Thank you. It's so good to have you here in Brazil. I hope you talk more. I hope we will play soccer, have some barbecue. Okay?
Maybe after the soccer.
Maybe after the soccer, yeah, hopefully, yeah. So, primos e primas, muito obrigado por estarem com a gente nesse episódio. Oh, and we have something called concurso cultural here. It's like cultural concourse. I'm not sure. It's like a prize we'll gift to some cousins. Can we gift a signed book from you?
Of course.
Yes?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so cousins, you have a signed book, okay? And we'll gift one of you guys, and I'll explain now in Portuguese how you can do it. Na nossa foto, que deve estar postada agora no nosso Instagram, né? É que não estou aqui para fazer aquela palhaçada toda. Então você vai lá, você marca o Sean Ellis, tá? E aí você bota um foguinho, e aí o Lucão e o Kaique, eles vão ter que assistir o episódio e aí eles vão escolher um de vocês para ganhar um livro desse assinado pelo Sean, tá bom? Sean, thank you so much for joining us e espero vocês no nosso próximo episódio. Um grande abraço e tchau!